it's the proudest day and the proudest time in the seat of a rally car, because that day and that hour and those minutes, I got the bit between my teeth. You know, I really stood up and was counted and said, this is not getting away. I remember when we pulled on our helmets and Donald says to me, what are we doing? I said, we're going for gold, Barrett. That's all was said. I can still picture that run. That was just the best run ever.
Welcome to Krunching Gears, the Rally Podcast, Season 2, Episode 2. Connor, you're welcome once again.
Kevin, thanks a mil. Delighted to be here.
Excellent. So, last weekend we had the Monte Carlo Rally. Not maybe the most exciting rally that there ever has been, but, you know, you can't take it away from Sébastien Ogier. What a
man. Yes, absolutely. Ogier, what a man. My hesitation is over, do we slag off Monty or not? Look, you've got, you know, Ogier was there to win the event, which he did 9 times. You know, he's world champion. He's in a class of his own. There's nobody could touch him. It's tarmac event. It was a clean tarmac event. There was no snow, nothing like that. You know, it was a good tarmac rally. It maybe didn't have the excitement because the weather wasn't there. Still a damn decent event. You know, so I don't know. I think people are being harsh. You know, I did see a few comments online where everybody was, you know, the comment was last year there was complaints when the calendar came out, there were so few tarmac events on the calendar, and then we got one and everybody's like, oh, that was boring. You know, so I don't know. I think it's a bit harsh. I thought I enjoyed Monty. Yeah, we didn't have the excitement that you know, the ice and the snow brings. I still thought it was a good event.
Yeah, I have to say there has a few clips surfaced there over the last few days, and the commitment of the drivers through, you know, it's a fast section, but there's a few wee twists and turns in it, things like that, and the kahunas of some of the drivers, it's a sight to be seen. Like, that's the kind of thing that needs to be shown on, you know, the big screen.
Absolutely. Look, the live action and the way WRC Plus, I love it. I think it's great. But, you know, from a logistics point of view, they can't have roadside cameras, you know, in all the positions and capture all the stuff. So we see all these lovely edited clips afterwards that make the event look absolutely phenomenal. Now, if we went back to a few years ago where you just had your nighttime review shows where all of that stuff could be packed in, yeah, the Monty would have looked damn incredible.
Mm-hmm.
But with the live action stuff that WRC Plus gives us, it's not as exciting, but it is exciting if you're standing there, or when you, as you say, when you see those clips afterwards, it's phenomenal, the speeds and the commitment in those cars at the moment, just incredible between, you know, the Rally 1 guys and the Rally 2 guys. It's just nuts.
Yeah, and we're probably almost overloaded, you know, as like the all live, you know, and because it's so instant and so accessible, that, you know, we can dip in and out anytime, whereas before, as you say, we were getting a round up at the end of the day, or, you know, the following week or whatever. So to have that facility, to have it there, it's fantastic. It really is, and, you know, we can't note that, in fairness.
Yeah. No, look, all live is great. It just can't cover everything.
Yeah.
It's just not feasible. But my goodness, the access it does give us, we could only have dreamt of that, you know, 10, 15 years ago. It's just nuts.
Yeah. Well, I'm pigeonholing both of us here, but in our youth, we had teletext or CFAX or whatever, you know. So what can we say? You know, there's no point us, you know, dissecting what happened in Monte. You know, anybody's listening to this, I'm sure, has a fair idea. Ogier, dominant. Evans, I think Evans had a very good rally.
Listen, there would have been a Toyota podium lockout if Evans hadn't had the puncture. I thought Evans was back in form. He's got a grip of that car, or they've got that car tweaked to Evans' style. He struggled all of last year. He just couldn't get comfortable in the Rally 1 car. But it looks like he's got it, and I'm going to be, you know, he's in for, if that's the case, he's in for a phenomenal year. I think we'll see Evans as we saw him a couple of years ago when he was challenging Ogier for that championship.
Absolutely. And, you know, the champion from 2022, Kelly Rovanperä, looked in mighty good form there again at the weekend. So, and like probably his least favorite surface, tarmac. He looks comfortable there, doesn't he?
Least favorite surface, and I want to say least favorite event. It doesn't seem to be mad on the Monty. Certainly wasn't a fan of the nighttime stages. So and he just bedded himself in nice. No panic, no stress, no pressure on him, and he just built up the speed over the weekend, and he was phenomenal then Saturday afternoon and Sunday.
Absolutely, absolutely. And he probably hit the nail on the head. I heard him saying on Sunday afternoon about, he didn't realise how much cleaning of the road, even in tarmac, you're doing as well too. So like all those things all play in. And then, our own Aaron Johnson sitting on with Takamoto. Like Taka and some strong performances over the weekend, it bodes well for the rest of the year there as well.
Absolutely, yeah. No, he had a great run. He really did. And I was delighted to see him out in the full works car, considering he's sharing the Rally 1 entries with OJ. So I was delighted that the team had him out in a full Rally 1 car. And I'm going to jump very quickly. I think that's where Hyundai missed a trick.
Yeah.
Breen should have been out in the fourth car. I just don't get why he wasn't. He was back in the team, having never driven the Rally 1, what do you call it, 20.
Yeah.
That they should have used that as a test event, considering the restrictions there are on the test days. It would have been, sensible to have him in there.
Yeah, and the data I could have collected, even put him out there as a test mule just to give him the mileage in the car,
absolutely. Yeah, he didn't need to go for points or anything. It just would have been purely a test run. Try all different settings, try different whatever. Let him get used to the car, and then try out, settings for the other guys as well. But I think they missed a trick.
For sure. Like Terry Neville, we all know he's a class act. He was the only guy that sort of threatened to get, to nip at the Toyotas, really,
Well, like it's his car, it's been built around. We all know that the team, have more or less admitted it. And if you've heard Andrea Andamo being interviewed since he's left the team, he clearly admits that the car is built around Neville. So I would have been a bit concerned if he hadn't been up there challenging. But I'm kind of a little bit out of a loss since the event's been over. Neville and the team have said, yeah, well, look, we came to the event with the car set up for a traditional Monty, where they were expecting snow in the mountains. But it was clear from, 4 or 5 days out that the long-range weather forecast was not showing that. So why they still had a car on Thursday on the start ramp set up for snow, and I haven't a clue.
No, and you think back to a few years ago, whenever Spain was, gravel and the tar event, they were able to change the car from gravel to tarmac setup, within an hour or whatever it was. How can they not fine tune like a tarmac specification from a snow setup to like a dry tar? A beggars belief that explanation. Like Castani and Lappy were so far off, where Neville was. It has to be a concern, really.
Absolutely. Both of them lacked confidence in that car, and very much so Sordo. He really wasn't just not comfortable at all. And it's not like he was on the limit. He just wasn't comfortable. It was concerning to see his lack of, he wasn't enjoying that at all. And again, a little bit concerned there. He was only coming back to the team if they were going to give him a few more events, than previous year, and that he could challenge for, decent points in the championship or a decent place in the championship. So again, little concerned that he started the way he started this year.
That's for sure. And Lappy, it's his first event, so we can only hope that he, I suppose, closes the gap to Terry now at this stage. M Sport, Tannock showed in the power stage, but at no stage did he look to be comfortable with the car. There was nowhere he was really on the door handles. There's more to come there, isn't there?
There is. Like, again, when we spoke to Jamie McMillan there in our preview for Monty, Jimmy has admitted that, the team still have to get a final solution in place for that extra tire wear from, the lack of downforce, etc. in the car, the understeer, basically. That's part of the problem. The other thing was they seem to be lacking a bit of, top end grunt. They don't seem to have the same power as the Honda, and definitely not the Toyotas. Lappy, or sorry, not Lappy, apologies, Tanak pushed on the very last stage when he didn't have to save tires.
Mm-hmm.
So, the issue needs to be sorted around the tire wear, because that's what's really holding them back.
And we probably should say, we're probably not giving Toyota enough credit. Like, they have developed that car over the winter as well. Like, the Hyundai at the end of last season was the tarmac car. Like, Toyota could have looked out the top 4 places if things had fell their way this weekend. Like, that's fantastic. Maybe not fantastic for the championship, but fantastic from a Toyota team point of view, that the 4 drivers are, comfortable in the car, driving well, and the car's good.
Yeah, listen, Toyota got a black eye in Japan, and they certainly seemed determined on the Monty that was not going to happen again. They came with the new aero and engine upgrades, and clearly the best car out there by a mile.
For sure. And then Rally 2, we keep hearing, this has to be the category. Rally 1, spectacular, all the bells and whistles. But yeah, there was 10 cars, 9 cars, if it's not fair to disregard the third driver in the M Sport car, but I can't remember how many Rally 2 cars started Monday. And the top 20 cars was in many stages were covered by less than a minute. It's it almost seems like a no-brainer to go down that route.
Absolutely. I think, from all the things that we're saying are wrong about the sport, the lack of manufacturers, the cost, the Rally 1s, etc., the Rally 2 route really is the way to go. Give that should be where the future of this sport lies, and put big aero on them, get the manufacturers involved, make it a sensible price. We can maybe have 5 or 6 manufacturers fighting it out there, which would be phenomenal.
Yeah.
As it is, we've already got rumors now of Hyundai, will they cut and run to F1 in 2 years' time? So, it's just every time we make a step forward, we seem to be taking 2 back almost.
Yeah, you've already got Skoda, Citroen, M Sport, the Polo still a 4-speed vehicle, and Hyundai. You have 5 or 6 manufacturers there already, and that could be built upon. But anyway, that's a whole round for another night. Our own guys. What can we say? Have to say, impressed by the two crews.
Listen, it was phenomenal for Josh and for Will, what do you call it, and Liam and John to get out there, to compete in Monty, kind of dreams come true stuff. Unfortunately, for both of the crews, rally didn't go their way, but they seem to have had a great experience, seem to have really enjoyed it, and put in some great times when everything was going smoothly for them.
Yeah, Josh in particular set, in Rally 2 category, set some, top 10 times. That's fantastic. That's a step forward from last year, so that has to be, have to give them credit for that. And then Will and Liam, that's only their second time in the Rally 2 car at that level, and we're a million miles off the pace. So that's fabulous, really, really is, And then Eamon Boland and Mick Morrissey, just keep doing what they keep doing and do it with a smile on their face. Fantastic to see.
It is. Listen, it's great. Eamon is out there flying the flag constantly, and you could put your money on him for a good solid finish every time.
And just, as I say, they're out in the Citroen. It seems so unusual to not see him in a Ford, because he's been a Ford now for so long. It was just good. Just the brain didn't compute it. Speaking of Irish thing, the weekend coming up now, we have Galway. It's so hard to believe that the season's already ready to start again.
I know it is. It is ridiculous that it's come around so quickly. And the beauty about it is lots of positives as well with it.
Absolutely. The empty list there came out towards the tail end of last week, and that's 150 cars, I think, in for Galway. It's been years since we had that kind of interest in Galway. Brilliant to see. And there's a top 20 there that would be in any rally in the country or beyond, that would be proud of it. Nice to see a few new cars out. The likes of Catherine McCourt going Citroen, Sam Moffat back in a Rally 2 car as well. One of the new Hyundais as well. It's going to be interesting, how all these cars and the change of car will affect some of the drivers as well.
Absolutely, listen, a fantastic entry, some really nice what do you call it, new machinery as well. Surprising who didn't even make it into the top 10
Yeah.
on a normal event. You would have,
Uh-huh.
it would have been safely there. And again, one of the most exciting battles is going to be George and Sam.
Absolutely, absolutely. When you get the likes of Andrew Purcell, who won Wexford last year, starting at number 11, Robert Barrowell, who comes second in the national championship last year, Patrick O'Brien, Irish forestry champion, and like one of the great hope, young bright hopes coming through, sitting at number 17, Jason Mitchell, number 18, and like, and in fairness, there's nobody above them that probably shouldn't be there either. So that it shows you the strength and depth there.
Absolutely. Like even there, what do you call it? Patrick O'Brien, I'm really excited to see. And
Yeah,
again, as you say, Jason Mitchell as well. I'm really interested now to see how they get on in Galway. And another man that's back out again is Declan Boyle.
yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. And then the modified, top entry there as well. And the other one, last year we were preaching to the converted probably here, but the historics, like I think there's 20 starters or something in the historics. Like that championship once again this year is just going to be phenomenal.
Yeah, I know. What do you call it? The historics is just improving. It's maturing.
Yeah.
It's like a fine wine. It's getting better with age, but it is every year. Just the historics just improves a little bit more, and it becomes that bit more interesting. Again, I really want to see a proper historic event or a historic championship here. A standalone. Like Killarney shouldn't be the only one.
No, yeah, absolutely, completely agree because the interest there and the interest is huge. So we thought we'd catch up with Kevin O'Driscoll. Kevin's the press officer for the Galway Rally, and I started off by asking him. It was hard to believe it was that time of the year again.
Yeah, it is. It doesn't seem long since the last one. Although I haven't been at a rally personally myself since the Galway Summer Rally, so I probably can't wait for it at this stage. Yeah, it's been too long for me, but yeah, it is. But it's the time of year. It's like the silly season is over now. This is where things get real again, and it's probably the one attraction of a winter rally in Ireland, I suppose you should call it. So you get a nice early start in Galway, and Galway has its own character anyway. It's always been one of my favourites because even ever before I moved up here, because it's just the nature of it. It's just so different to every other rally that you're going to run because the terrain and the weather that you get and everything else, and it's because the new toys are out for the start of the year. That's what it's all about.
It's always great, because as you say, the weather's mixed in. You see the new cars, the new liveries, the new partnerships. It's always exciting, and it's just one of them. And I think since Christmas, everybody's kind of right when we get back at the rally, and again,
yeah,
Galway's got a new lease of life, especially over the last few years, really, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. It struggled for entries for a while, and then of course they didn't run in 18. But since COVID, thankfully, the last 2 years, both summer rallies actually, and in 19 and when did the last one was last year, and the two internationals that have run since have been very well subscribed. By Galway standards. I mean, going back in history, 100 inches would have been a lot for the event. In some cases, they struggled to make even 70 or 80. But like this year now, for example, between everything, there's over 150. And that's a big jump, even up on last year, which was quite good as well.
Yes. It's good to see. And like this year, can you give us a kind of an overview of what's happening this year?
Yeah, so it's the 45th running of the rally, so since 1971. There's going to be a ceremonial start on the Friday night near Square just before the rally, which is kind of traditional anyway. And then the action gets underway then Saturday morning. Everything is based around the town of Loughrea, services in the Mart, and then you have the 3 stages 3 times just to the west of the town, around Big Crowell, Ardra and Loughrea direction. 3 stages 3 times, service after each 3 stages, and then Sunday is stages just to the south and east of Loughrea, very close to the town. 2 stages done 3 times, and again the service in the middle of that as well. So it's a very compact route, very little. I mean, they're leaving from the race course in Park Ferme, but once you're out on the road on the stages, there's very little road miles between the stages themselves and the service. So it's a nice route, it's a nice compact route, and a good challenging route because I know even from my limited experience of going back over the years of Galway, it's some of these roads probably haven't been used for a long, long time in the international rally. There's certainly a couple, I'd say, definitely you're talking 20 years or more.
Excellent. It's great to mix it up a wee bit as well.
Yeah. It's a good challenge. I mean, particularly that first stage is a real challenge. I think Killian referenced that somewhere along the way as well. It is it's probably the winning and losing of it in some respects. It's a real tough, challenging, typical Galway stage. It's slippery and stone walls and everything else that goes with that. So
brilliant. And there is something special about the ceremonial start in Ayr Square. I think as we mentioned earlier, everyone's new, but bringing it into the city like that should be utilised more in rallying. We tend to hide rallying away, but Galway's always had that Ayr Square thing, and it's always been a great way of kicking off the championship.
Yeah, it has. I mean, I suppose, by my own admission, I haven't been in there the last couple of years. I've usually stuck in the press office for when it happens, but it's a good way of getting the, say, youngsters out and families out, and they get to see the cars close up, and it's dark, and there's that probably a bit more of an atmosphere about the whole thing because of that. And this year as well, and I'm sure I probably referenced it more than once, but it's the bank holiday weekend is probably going to make a difference as well. The new bank holiday, so it's probably going to bring a few more around to have a look and see what's going on.
Excellent, because it's great to see people that know nothing about rallying stumbling upon this and seeing the spectacle. We know how good it is, but it's nice to see it through other people's eyes as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think there was even an element of that last year with some of the Facebook messages we were getting in prior to the event, and even just the morning of the event, that people who had gone to Ayr Square for a look were kind of saying, "Oh, where can I see this tomorrow? Where can I see it on Sunday or whatever?" And there were people with young families and whatever. It was nice to have that bit of it. It's probably an easy way in some respects to promote it. Obviously, it's not an easy thing to set up because you're obviously closing off part of the city or square in the city, but there's a benefit in that if it runs well, that you're bringing it to people and you're giving them, say, "Oh, I'd like to see a bit of this on the stages and see what goes on after that." So
excellent. And and it brings footfall into the city as well too.
It does. It does. And like we said, we've an excellent headquarters in the Connacht. We had it last year and again this year. Which is a huge hotel, but it's filling up actually because, as I said, with popularity of it and the weekend that it's on. And they also have the Hyde Hotel and the Residence Hotel in the city, which are sister hotels, and they're filling up as well. So, and I'm sure they're not the only ones that are busy, but they are, as I said, they're seeing the benefit of. Definitely, I know the Connacht have seen the benefit of the rally itself themselves. They're happy with it, and it's good because it's quite time of the year generally. I know the bank holiday going forward could change that anyway, but between last year and this year, it has probably proved a benefit to them as well, and the local economy, obviously as well. I mean, the amount of bed space is taken up and everything else, and it all brings money to the areas, and that's what you want, I suppose, this time of year.
Yeah, we forget that side of rallying. It's filling beds, it's getting people in restaurants, especially as you say at this time of the year. A lot of these places are very quiet, and they get a bumper weekend out of it. So it's nice to bring that into Galway and Lochray and Athenry, all them areas as well.
Yeah. Oh, it is absolutely. I mean, it doesn't. I'm sure there's even areas as far out to say Gort and Ballinasloe that'll probably benefit to an extent, even from accommodation and everything else. But yeah, and I think it's probably, as you know yourself, Galway is probably one of the livelier places to go anyway. It's not it's not quite spot by any stretch. But yeah, it isn't. Look, I suppose that's always been one of the key benefits of having the rally, a winter rally, is there that when it does come around, that it does kind of bring a bit of life back in after January, I suppose.
That's for sure. And rallying is very much a team sport. You just don't ride down there on the Friday evening and be ready to rock Saturday morning. There's a team goes behind preparing this rally, and that's been going on probably 6-8 months prior to the event.
Oh yeah, there is, and look, I suppose I'm not going to mention Toni because I don't know all the names anyway. But we'll say Gary Leonard, who's TOC and president of the club, is a lot of experience. He's won the rally numerous times at this stage, but he's back. He was there in 2020, and he's back now again this year, and he's got a very solid, experienced team behind him. And well capable. He's just, it's like anything, I suppose. There's always things you meet challenges in different things, but the more experience you have, the more you can override these sort of things and just deal with it and roll with it, and hopefully it all comes together on the day. But yeah, there's plenty of experience there anyway. There's no novices out there.
No, and I always find that dealing with Galway Motor Club, it's run by good people who understand rallying and who are competitors themselves. They know what rally competitors want, and they make the event fit that criteria really well, don't they? As you talked about the small road mileage, centralized service, and all those things all add up.
Yeah, it is. And I suppose even the 3x3 loop, which isn't always ideal for the residents and everything else, but it's still because of the daylight hours thing, you are restricted to an extent with that. So you kind of have to try and, I suppose, what they say, cut your cloth to measure. But at the same time, it's like as I said, there's a good team there. I think there's an empathy towards competitors for the most part. People look, all these guys know they go to rallies, they go marching, other events. They know what's going on there. And it's as I said, that's what you want to do. If somebody's traveling to your event, you want to make it as easy as possible for them to find a way around. No different if I was going anywhere else and I wanted to ask a question. You don't need to be afraid to ask that question. I always say that, even for me, like as a PRO, I don't mind who rings me or what resident rings me or whatever. I mean, my job is to try and find the right person to answer that question for that person. And that's what I do, because some of these people are traveling a long way, and it's only right that they're helped as much as they can.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you mentioned there marshals. Like, marshals is a huge part of making any event happen. I would say Galway's no different. They're always looking for extra bodies of the helps available.
Yeah, we'll never turn down bodies anyway. That's for sure. I can plug the chief marshal, your Patsy Finnerty is the chief marshal, and he's on 087 287 0702. So it's 087 287 0702. Yeah, and like again, like that. There has been a lot of interest, to be fair, and there has been from around the country and people interested in doing that. But I suppose it's always good to have enough in the bank, as it were. So, but Patsy's very, very experienced. He's he's been chief marshal for years in both rallies now at this stage. So, so he knows he knows what he wants in that situation. But yeah, I said all help is always appreciated, and especially I suppose as the safety aspect of it becomes more prevalent. Obviously there's a bigger requirement for more marshals and more. Just have enough is better to have too many than too little.
Yes, yeah, better looking at it than looking for it. That's the thing.
Yeah, exactly. That's for sure.
For sure. And we're all excited about who's going to be there, who's not going to be there. Can you give us a flavour of what we can expect to see in the stages?
Yeah, I suppose the first thing that jumps out, I have no list in front of me, but or anything like that, but it was just an idea that there's actually, I think this could be first, or certainly hasn't happened too often before, but I think there's actually 6 tarmac champions involved in it, or former and present. So you're talking about Sam and Josh, and you have Garrett McHale, Tim McNulty, Gary Jennings, and Declan Boyle would be kind of previous champions. But then you have other guys there like Marion Evans, Callum McCourt, Callum Devine, Desi Henry, these guys, Robert Barrable. There's Patrick O'Brien. There's some serious drivers up there. I think the top 20 will be really, really good. I think it'll be really committed. And modified men, I suppose Jason Black, Gary Kiernan, Kevin Eves, Marty Toner would probably be among them, Conor Murphy. So quite interesting this year. Must be from the historic lakes, but there's a bit of an interest in the UK from the historic end of things. A couple of drivers who I don't recall rallying in Ireland before anyway. Well, Will Onions is one anyway. I know he's a seriously quick driver in the UK, the Mark II. And then Tom Clark was very good in the historic lakes. Rob Smith has been here a couple of times in the past and seriously fast driver. Marion Evans, the other Marion, is there. And I suppose a couple of interesting ones from overseas. You have Lee Megan, who's actually a native of Loughrea and been living in America for years, coming over as usual. But we also have a guy called, I pronounce his name, Gunnar Johannesson. He's actually, I think, an Icelandic rally champion.
Right.
So he's entered in, I think, Martin Brady's co-driving actually, but he's in with in a C2R2 Max. So it'd be interesting to see how that goes. I don't know if there's ever been an Irish or an Icelandic driver in Ireland before, but certainly to be welcomed anyway,
Yeah, and hopefully he doesn't feel at home. There's not too much ice about for him.
Yeah, exactly. But so it's great to see. It's just it's really good. And as I said, there's a good strong field of over 150 cars there as present between everything. So it's an interesting one. I suppose I couldn't be leaving out some of the Irish drivers as well in the historics, like Ray Breen's there and Luke McCarthy as well. So there's a very, very strong historic field in there as well.
Yeah. And you mentioned also earlier there, Galway down, it's 45 years it's run now and illustrious. Yeah. But you always think of Galway, you think of McHale, you think of your Fishers, Lovell, Donnelly, etc. I've seen some titanic battles over the years. Is there any personal highlights for you?
And the first one just because it was only decided on the Sunday morning to go to the rally itself. And back in 1998, I was living in Cork at the time, and we a manager that I used to work with decided that he'd bring a company car for a spin and try it out. And we came up to the Galway Rally actually, and it was very, very enjoyable. And the first one I remember, that was the year that Fisher and McHale had a big battle, and Bertie put the back of the car off into a bank and lost time. Gronholm's year obviously was another one that stood out. The year Darren Gas won it as well was a serious battle. I know it was back to one-day format at that stage. I liked the first R5 year as well. That Keith and Alistair and all those came out, and I know Gary ran away with the rally, but down the field it was great to watch competition on the stages. But to be honest with you, I don't think I can't say there's anyone I haven't really enjoyed, because it started the year and it's a new beginning every year. So You know, I'm sure some rallies are better than others, but you know, when you're out there to enjoy it, you don't really kind of notice. But they're the ones that would stand out for me. You know.
Yeah, and like
I suppose Alice's first win as well in Galway was nice as well.
special, yeah.
That was another one. Yeah, that's another one that sticks out for me as well.
For sure. And like you mentioned, you know, like when the championship went down the R5 route, it has really revitalized the championship. Like it has gone from strength to strength over the last few years. Great to see as well, isn't it?
It is, I suppose. Look, it's it's contentious at the time, maybe in the way it was brought about. And look, that's a different argument for a different day. And I was always kind of in favour of that route eventually. And I suppose natural progression took over anyway. And eventually R5s are better than the old WRCs anyway now in terms of, you know, the reliability and the speed is nearly the same. So, and they're good to watch. I mean, the competition is serious, even with only 4 or 5 top end drivers last year in Cork. I mean, you couldn't have asked for more of those 4 or 5 drivers. They just gave it everything and fantastic to watch. But I think so. And to be honest with you, my other opinion is I've lost interest really in the WRC as generally. I think if R5 is a top category, you would have a wonderful WRC. There's no question. And fair enough, let the manufacturers have 1 or 2 little trick bits extra or something, and that, you know, but a good amateur will come up and challenge them if need be. And I think that's the way it should have gone, and that's the way it should go in the future if at all possible.
I think Monte Carlo there at the weekend, I seen something at one stage, and the top 20 or 25 Rally 2 cars were separated by less than a minute. And there only was 10, you know, WRC 1 cars in the entire rally. I think WRC 2 it should be the main category.
I think it should be main category. I think it's more attractive to more manufacturers as well. I think anyway, and it's more cost. It's definitely cost effective as they go, I suppose. But you know, it's not cheap or anything like that. But I think it's a very good competitive category. You know, and you know, I think
the cars are all built to the same spec, and we see in Ireland that there's no one car that's, you know, significantly better than the other. They're evenly matched.
Yeah, it's just how you drive them after. Yeah, exactly.
For sure. And you know, we know how much money is involved in rallying. Like for the Galway Rally, having a good local sponsor has made a huge difference there as well.
It has. I mean, Carwile have been outstanding local sponsors of the event. They came on board in 2016 and they've been with us every year since. Like, they're a very progressive local company, and you know, they're obviously opening up stations around the country and, you know, expanding as they go along. But they've been very good to us. So last year, been very reliable, very good sponsors, very good at promoting themselves as well. You know, to be fair, they work with us, and on the stages they have their own team to bring out boards and everything else and do whatever. You know, they really buy into the whole thing, and you know, and it's a very good partnership, and long may it continue, because I think it's brilliant to have a local company like that sponsoring a rally of that size. I think it's good for everyone, really. You know.
For sure. Because like I know, even from being down at the rally, I think you go into any Cork station, and they have, like, you know, posters up promoting the rally and all too. So like it's a 1-1 for everybody, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, of course. Yeah, and you know, as I said, they buy into it, and that's the important thing. You know, they're interested in, you know, I suppose, look, they're expanding and they want to do well, and you know, we want to promote our events, and you know, it just works well, and it's just where they're located as well. I just think it's ideal for the rally itself at the moment. You know.
And thanks there to Kevin O'Driscoll for taking the time to chat to us. You know, great to get the update ahead of Galway. And also, you know, Kevin mentioned there the Cara Boyle, you know, an amazing sponsor. They've been involved with the Galway Rally now for the last number of years, and great to see them continuing with that. Like, where would we be without sponsors?
Absolutely. You know, and it's the start of a new season, the Tarmac Championship, and you know, there's some exciting sponsors there been brought on board as well. Like Samdeck Security is going to be the overall championship sponsor. Then the modified section, they're going to be sponsored by Autofashion, that, you know, Gary McAvoy there, and then the historic championship is sponsored by Rodney Stewart, his company Synergy Motorsport. So like, this is so positive. There's lots of goodwill out there now towards the Tarmac Championship this year. Fantastic to see, isn't it?
It is, and again, a variety of sponsors as well. You know, because it gives them a chance to concentrate on, you know, those segments of the sport as well.
Absolutely, and you know, like another exciting piece of news, I suppose it was announced over the last couple of days there. HM Productions is going to be, you know, covering the events live.
Yeah, and the fact that they're going to be streaming it, you know, via YouTube and Facebook, you know, so they've got social media covered, and we're going to get live reports from service as well as, you know, the in-studio commentary. It's great.
Absolutely. You know, I think, you know, it's so exciting, and like, you know, we're going to hear from like Toni Kelly and, you know, Michael Patterson, and they're going to give us some ideas what's involved in it all. So anyway, first of all, we'll hear from Michael.
Well, it's all fallen into place over the last few weeks, but HM Productions obviously have done a live streaming project over the last sort of 18 months, 2 years on various events, Ulster Rally, West Cork, Clacton. And the Tarmac Rally Championship have decided this year to bring us along as a package to cover the whole championship. And it's our intention to carry on where we left off last year, really. Try and do every single stage live and live from the service park. So, yeah, I think we came up with a good formula. The organisers of all the events seem to like it. And as a group of TROA, they've decided, yep, we'd like to have you on board for the year. So Chris Hyland's put together a package that very similar to what we did on things like West Cork and Ulster Rally last year and the Circuit of Ireland. So it's just expanding to cover those other events that we didn't do last year, really. So we're starting as we want to carry on as we finished off last year.
Yeah, and Toni, from your point of view, it has to be exciting to be involved in this.
Oh, it absolutely is. Like you know, from the moment and kind of day and hour I got working on the media side of rallying, it has been a complete privilege. Like, and there were a few years there where I kind of had a break, and I got the call from Chris last year. And do you know, to be honest, it was so exciting to get back into it, you know. And when I spoke to Chris first, and he kind of explained what he was doing, and you know, Michael said earlier about Chris's brilliant vision and his very focused vision, you know, this is in the works for a long time, you know. And it's just, as I said, it is a privilege, like, to be able to see rallying from this very close perspective, and get to talk to people and see the thing live. And you know, I think the live streaming thing is just incredibly exciting. You know, the fact that it's, like, for me, it's basically the format of a TV show, but it's live. Like, that is just, it is, like, it's such a privilege to be a part of something like this, because I do think that the whole production is just so miles ahead. So it's I have to say, like, I think it's going to be a pretty cool advantage to the full year and the full championship this year.
Yeah, because, like, you know, we're all rally fans, and you know, there's nothing beats that being on the, you know, standing on the ditch, or, you know, waiting on the cars coming. And, like, it's not every event we can attend. You know, it's difficult for somebody in Donegal to get to West Cork or whatever. This is going to be the next best thing.
Absolutely. I mean, like, I was very lucky to work with RPM for years, and then I worked with iRally Radio for years. And, like, Michael, the end of stages, like, there's literally, you know, we met at so many stage ends, and there's nothing more exciting than being there live. And to be able to bring this in such, like, a professional manner, you know, where the guys are in the studio bringing us all of the information that we could possibly need. We're seeing impeccable footage, and then, you know, we're getting to talk to people live at service areas and stuff. Like, it's absolutely phenomenal to be able to do this. Like, so I personally, you know, I'm clearly very excited about it, but I do feel like it's amazing for Irish rallying.
Yeah. And, like, Michael, you know, like, from a rally point of view, like, this is, like, you know, the Premiership being, you know, streamed on Sky Sports or whatever. You're, you know, talking about action as it happens. Like, that's big weight on your shoulders. But do you enjoy it?
Yeah, yes, I do, Kevin. I do enjoy it. It's not the same as doing Rally News. That was a completely different thing, and I made it quite clear to Chris before I got involved that I would only really get involved in something if it was really, really good. Well, Chris showed me what his plans were, what the technical side behind it is very complicated, and there's a team of people in the background making all this happen. I'm just a very small cog. But I thought, I used to do live rally reports for the BBC, and I used to get terribly nervous, and my voice would have got shaky and everything else. And I thought, my wife said to me, you know, you sure you want to do this, before I did it? And well, look, we'll give it a go, and we'll see how we get on. And if I'm no good at it, I'm no good. If it's rubbish, it's rubbish, and we'll just see how it is. I have a great co-presenter in Xavier McCartan, who has a huge, long history. And, you know, we sat down and had a cup of tea before the Ulster Rally in 2021. And the minute we started broadcasting, it just, at the end of the day, I thought, we've been on air for 8.5 hours, and it's like time flew. It was fantastic because of the production people, because everything worked. Well, what you see is working. It's not necessarily working behind the scenes. What you see on the screen is working. So, but I mean, that's the part of broadcasting live for anything, whether it's a soccer match or a GAA game or Strictly Come Dancing or whatever. There's always drama in the back room, but we've been very lucky. I mean, the circuit last year, such a thrilling finish to it, and to be able to cover that I think we had 2 cameras at the end of the final stage. So we've got all the satellite technology now with the live timing. We can track the cars as a package. Chris could see all this coming together, and yeah, we've a lot going on in the studio, and it really does take 2 of you probably do it because there's so much information, and part of the secret is disseminating that information, getting the good stuff, and getting that message across rather than, there's a lot of flack, and in effect, my late father used to say, when you go to the end of a stage, and Toni will be, when she was doing iRally, sometimes you don't get a lot of information at the end of a stage. You get a lot of the same things, what the guy in front's time was, and I'm on the wrong tires. How many times have I heard that over the years? And part of the secret, I suppose, of Rally News was we were able to take all that information, edit it, and then produce the very best of it. Well, to a certain extent, in the studio, Zav and I are working together a little bit, taking a lot of the information we're getting and talking about what we see as relevant, but you're making a split-second decision. So your initial question was, do I enjoy it? Amazingly, yeah. It's a bit of a buzz now, I have to say. It's very enjoyable, but it's hard work, and also you have to be careful. You mind your P's and Q's, as my mum would say. So there you go.
Yeah. And you mentioned, your mum and dad there, Rally News for a generation or maybe even 2 generations, it was the go-to, that was the Bible of rallying. When you're on the event, you needed that Patterson's Rally News to find out what was going on. This is almost Rally News for the 21st century. You're now creating those stories. You're now, weaving them stories. And, I would say your dad, if he's seen what was going on now, he would be only delighted to see how the story has evolved.
Well, I know for sure my mum watches it avidly. She thinks the first one, she didn't really know much about it, and she's not great with technology, but she sent me a message, said, Jerry McGarty's just rang me to say, this is amazing, the stuff from the Ulster Rally in 21. And my mum said, well, how do you watch it? So Jerry talked her through it, and she now is really, really hooked on it. I mean, there are things that we ultimately would like to see ourselves getting a single platform, a one go-to place where you can go to. I mean, at the moment, part of the secret of the technicality is when you do stream anything through Facebook or whatever, it gets constantly interrupted. Our part of our technical expertise is it's a single stream at the start of the day, whether it's on YouTube or whether it's on Facebook or whatever. Now that's part of the technicality of what Highland Production brings to it, and also Wisecom, the studios that we use, and I'll let you all into a secret. Everybody thinks that Zav and I are on the rally. Well, we're not. We're in a studio in Belfast, and we get all the information. So Toni and Andrew Bush and all the cameramen are on the rally. We're in a studio in Belfast, and this is what Chris reckoned was the way to make it work, was the technical side of the studio. Everything comes back in. It's all bespoke. It's all absolutely state-of-the-art equipment, and it's really, really good in that respect. So it's the technology that we have out in the stage is about beaming the pictures back. That's something even beyond my head. I'm not quite sure what all's going on there. And I know Toni has cameramen and everything, and it's like they have to do certain things. Well, they're the experts, so let them get on with it. But yes, it is, I suppose, it is like a modern day rally news service. It's just a bit bigger and more people involved, and we don't actually write anything anymore. We just talk about it. But yeah, recognizing what's a good story and what's going on, and getting the information and getting good information from our I think we've now got a really good team of people. You know, the primary people are myself and Zav in the studio, and Toni in the service park, with Andrew Bush sometimes in the studio, sometimes in production, sometimes in the service park with Toni. And I think when he's not going to be doing some of the rallies this year, hopefully we'll have Andrew out and about, and he's great at asking questions. And of course, he's an encyclopedic knowledge of rallying. I mean, he can name off registration numbers of cars going back 30 years, and it's 40 years maybe. And you think to yourself, right, if I need to know anything, just send Andrew a text or whatever, or bring him into the studio for 20 minutes. So yeah, we've got a good team, and everybody has the same objective. They want to get the story of the rally, the characters of the rally, build the picture, but to bring the quality, and it's constant. You know, where our aim is to start in the morning and finish in the evening, and have a non-stop stream all day.
Excellent. Sorry, Conor, you want to jump in there?
Yeah, I was just going to say, so Toni, you know, stage end is a tough gig. Now, as an ex-competitor, you're bringing a lot of knowledge in that. But again, you know, you don't know what mood or what form somebody's going to be in when they hit that stop line and come down to talk to you. You know, how difficult is it, or how tricky is it to get the right information out of the drivers?
Well, you see, that was the funny thing about the stage ends. Like, you know, you never knew what you were going to be met with. And because it was live, you were kind of always on edge because you didn't know what was going to be said. And because it was radio and no footage, like camera footage, you couldn't see the full picture. So you could open the door to absolutely anything. Like, now for me personally, that made it very exciting, but it might not have come across that way, you know, that sort of way. It might have been strange listening, you know, that sort of way. Like, you know, you're not there, so you don't see the full thing. Whereas when you're standing there, you can see everything. But I think what I love about the service park, which to be honest with you, I was apprehensive about that, because I would prefer to just not wing it, but like kind of just wing it, just trust my gut and go with whatever's happening. And I kind of thought with the service park, it might be a little bit more, I don't know, I was a bit worried that I would have to be a little bit more refined, or I don't know, professional maybe or something, you know. But that's the thing about it. What I have to say, you know, surprised me about it was that there's actually as much kind of thrill running around the service park, and trying to chase drivers. And it's silly things like they mightn't actually be at their car, or they might have a sandwich in their mouths. Like, so the end of the stages were brilliant from my point of view, but I'm not sure that they were as sort of professional, I suppose, as this is. And I think what's amazing about the service park is that people have had a second to just gather themselves and actually think about what they've just gone through. And so I don't, it's funny, like it's a mixture. The end of the stage does give you a huge amount of realness. It's very raw, but surprisingly enough, the service park can be just as entertaining, running around trying to find everybody as well, and kind of, you know, you don't know who you're going to end up chatting to in the service park as well, whereas it was always just like navigator or co-driver. The odd time there'd be people at the end of stages, you know, that you could get talking to, but yeah, they're very different, and very interesting, to say the least.
Yeah. And like you mentioned there, you like to wing it, but I'm sure there's a bit of research and a bit of homework goes into, you know, every event beforehand. Like what is involved from your side? Are you studying the form? Are you know, going through the entry lists, etc.?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, to be fair, I have to say, like, hats off to the two guys in studio, because like their job is so intense, and like from my point of view, like I feel like they never get a minute, you know, when they have to have so much information and they have to be able to kind of talk about every single person and every single stage. And so like the job that the two guys in studio do is just like, it's you know, like Everest compared to maybe me doing Errigal. You know, like I'll do a bit of research for sure. I'll be checking out cars and results and, you know, like entry lists, as you say, and stuff. But the beauty about my particular job is that I get to just kind of deal with the story at hand. So if I have a person in front of me, I can literally just ask them like how they're feeling, what's going on for them, and then the story goes from there. So like I do a bit of research, but I do love the live, like real life story of what's actually happening in an event or in a day, or like literally in between two people during a stage or whatever. And you know, to kind of go back to the last question about being a competitor myself, I do think that it really helps me personally to be able to ask the right questions, because my God, you have so many feelings and thoughts and everything running through you when you're sitting in a rally car. Like, so it's so interesting, all of it. Like even the research, like, you know, already thinking about Galway, even though it's, not exactly on our doorstep, but it's not far away, and you're already like racing through entry lists and stuff to see who's there, and, you know, checking out what cars are there and are there any changes and stuff. Like, so there's a bit of research my end, to be fair, but like I have to say, like if you see Zav McCartan's notes, like you'll know the research that those two guys have to go through. It's incredible. Like,
like, Michael, it's just I come in there, like I'm thinking, you know, like Michal Moore used to cover the GAA, like he knew like the number 15 like was his, like the neighbour had got milk in their tea that morning or whatever. Do you just go to that level of research? You need to tell stories about the car coming down the stage. You know, the guy at home or the woman at home doesn't need to know it's a red Mark II coming down number 72. They need to know the story. They don't, you know, the picture's already there. You have to tell the story of what the picture is.
Well, I am really lucky because of the Rally News thing. That's given me a lifetime of encountering people, not just through Rally News, but through the notes and everything else as well, sitting at signing on. So I'm very lucky that I know an awful lot of the competitors personally. Zav has a great history. He worked in England in PR for Toni Jardine, who obviously has been to Donegal a couple of times. Toni, ex-Formula One pundit, but Tony's business, a very, very successful PR company in London. And Zav is a complete professional. Today, he was on the phone to me about the stages in Galway. What are they? The technical side of it, this, that, and the other. I sent him some stuff. He emailed me back. He said, right, I'm going to start my cards in the morning. So Zav has a system. This is his personal way of doing it. They're like little, what you used to get contact cards in the old days, sat in a box on your desk, and you have everybody's name and address. Well, he uses those, and it's the driver, the co-driver, the car, the history, where they're from, any notable achievements, significant results. And we have those, and we sit with those to start with. And if I'm talking away, Zav will maybe hand me a card. You don't see it, but he's handing me stuff under the table. I'm writing stuff down for him if he's talking, that if I know something. We both do as much research as we can. I mean, one of the things he said to me today, do you think, he said, we could get the registration numbers of some of the new R5 cars and things? And it's like, look, whenever the guys are putting their entries in, I'm not sure if they're giving them that information, but if we can get it, yeah, we'll get that information and we'll know. He said one of the cars, I think, that's going to start the rally next week in Galway. So we're just over a week out from Galway. He said that car was used by such and such in the Italian Championship last year. But he said, I'm struggling to get this information. So he's working tirelessly at stuff like that. We need to have as much information as we can. Like West Cork last year, I brought in Kevin O'Driscoll's History of West Cork, and whether anybody's ever read that or got a copy of it, if there's a delay or something, you're always looking for something to fill. And equally, taking that a step forward, somebody like Chris is always putting together a little 10-minute program somewhere where if there's a delay or we need to fill something, we can stick 10 minutes of a historic of that rally. So the preparation that goes in before is really, really a lot. You know, Chris was on the stages yesterday with his father. I've obviously done a recce for the rally already for the other side of my business. And I can tell you the rally is really, really looking good. There's 3 very, very tough stages on Saturday and 2 even tougher stages on the Sunday. And my wife came with me and made the notes, and she said, sort of, goodness, said, it's either really wide and flat out or really, really narrow and difficult. And that's Galway. You know, I would go for a pint on a Sunday night with a couple of rally boys, and some of them are quite good, you know, and one of them, a bit of a namesake of mine, when Mark, you know, he just every year, somebody like Wesley Patterson would just say, this is the most difficult rally of the year. And I have to agree with them. And this year will be no exception because it has been wet and the stages are in really, really good shape. But there's places where you just know there's not a tire that's going to work for the whole loop of stages. And there's going to be places where everything's a compromise. And, you know, we've all competed and we know there's no perfect answer for a group of 3 stages, but coming up with the best solution is because we know this and people like Toni know this, they're able to ask that question in the service park. And I mean, I think getting Toni to come on board last year was really great for us. It really gelled the whole package. So I think she's been a bit generous to us in the studio. You know, it really is a collaborative thing, and everybody works really very hard coming up to the event. And yeah, there's other things going on, but you have to spend a bit of time and focus on it. And you know, doing your homework is very important. But then on the day, who knows? It's rallying. Anything can happen on the day, and generally it does.
And Connor, you were looking to jump in there?
Yeah, I was just gonna say as well, like, you know, obviously you're still competing with social media out there as well. So I'm wondering, how would you incorporate, or what's the plan to incorporate any social media? You know, obviously there's a lot of videos of incidents, you know, or online immediately after something happens. I wonder, is that something you're looking at?
So the production guys in the production suite are constantly scanning social media. So the championship this year also has a media manager basically now. He only has a limited role, but Adam Hall will be looking after social media on behalf of the championship. What we're hoping to do is align some of our stuff. As I say, we get sent a lot of stuff. People, rather than put it on social media, already we have built up a great repertoire with some spectators who just send us bits and pieces. And if it's suitable, you know, the guys in the production suite will scan it, they'll have a look at it, they'll listen to it. If there's something that's not appropriate or whatever, well then, you know, we can't broadcast that. But we're very, very lucky. So I mean, anybody who is when the podcast is aired and they're possibly out in the stages, don't be afraid to check us out on social media. We're very acutely aware that social media, there's so many different platforms now, and we're obviously, our primary platform is YouTube and Facebook, where we're broadcasting live. But there are Twitter accounts and bits and pieces, and you know, this isn't a TikTok business. So yeah, and it's, you know, what is it they say? If you don't catch somebody's attention within 3 seconds, don't bother putting it on TikTok. Well, we're on for 8.5 hours, so that's not exactly TikTok content, is it?
For sure.
And you know, Instagram has become such a square-only images, and you can only have a certain resolution of video and bits and pieces. So when you're live, sometimes it doesn't fit with other elements of social media. But yes, we have this two-way street, which we hope will develop this year. One of the things that we will be doing is at the end of each day, there will be a 10-minute roundup in the evening, specifically aimed at social media, which isn't something that's happened historically. So It was conditional. That's going to be part of Chris's sort of responsibility. It'll be done to music as opposed to a commentary. And then I think there are plans to have a slightly longer commentated version later on in each week after each event. But don't quote me on that. I think that's something that's in negotiation at the moment. So there's a bit more to it than just the live stream. There'll be content, roundup content of the day for the international and the modifieds, which will include the historics, I believe. So that's my understanding. But with Chris not being able to be here tonight, he's got all the technical side. But it's something that once we know this is a requirement to do in the production end, they can just strip stuff out. If somebody says that's really good, we'll use that tonight. They have a secondary sort of role going in the production rooms, and they will strip that down and put it together then for a package that evening that will be promoted on social media on behalf of the individual events but primarily the championship, because the relationship between us is between us, the championship, and then each individual rally, which is good.
Yeah, and Toni, this, Chris has obviously handpicked the cream of the people to work on this project. Every person has this role to fulfill. It sounds as if it's the good people's doing that. You're not just talking in service. You're thinking ahead. You're thinking, will this work? Will this work? That. Come the end of the weekend, is it just is there a release that's all over? You just buzzed the whole weekend, more or less.
Do you know what? Yes, I buzzed the whole weekend. It just every time it was actually Donovan was the cameraman that was with me majority of the services last year, and once he gets the camera off his shoulder and we switch off, there is such a whew. Did that go okay? Was everything all right there? Do we need to remember anything? And then once we kind of know that that it went okay, I feel like I can finally relax. And then I jump onto the phone and straight to see the boys, to see what they're talking about, to see what's going on the stages. So as I've more information, and that's the thing about it. That's why this service is actually so incredible, because it's not just for people that aren't at the rally or whatever. I'm at the rally. I want to know what's going on in the stages, so the guys provide me with that information as well, but I think I've thought about this job since because as I said, with rally radio there was definitely an awful lot of winging it, because I kind of was thrown in at the deep end with that job. And I think you said something earlier, Michael, about you said you would you'd give it a go, and if the boss was happy, you'd be happy, and if you felt like you were doing a good job, you'd keep going at it. And I was the same when I got into the radio at the start, but it did allow for a little bit more winging it, because you had to it was live, and you actually didn't have a second to think, whereas you can be a little bit more thoughtful with the service area. And I think I've thought about this now the last few months to try and it's the way my brain works, and I've been trying to figure out what it is. Do I have to think too much ahead, or am I thinking too much ahead? And it's in my nature, I think, to just love a story, that if I'm talking to somebody or if I'm in conversation with somebody, I am so in it and I'm so invested in that person and in that moment and kind of what they're going through and what they're talking about. And I think it's my day job now is a hypnotherapist. So that's, I'm listening to what somebody's telling me, and I'm really kind of I'm trying to understand what's going on at a deeper level. And I think I think I'm doing the same thing with the rally, and again, because I've been a competitor, I do know that there's so much more going on than what you'd see. So I think it does just allow me that wee bit more time to be a bit sort of more thoughtful with the questions that I ask. And even broaching stuff, I will literally say, was that while scary? And it's not something that you would kind of think, but like it's literally like it's what I would be thinking. Like I would be thinking, jeepers, I nearly died. Like I don't know how I survived that. And I did come out of stage as being like, how did we get away with that? And so but that's the story. Like that's what rallying is. I know we're all trying to get around the stage as fast as we can. That is literally the aim of the game. But the beauty of it is like the story, the people involved, and not just the two people kind of in the car, but like those absolute heroes that are standing out either watching, or the safety element of marshals and stuff on the stages, or the people in the background running the whole thing, or the guys back in service that are like putting on the kettle, or doing anything.
I roll them below a car, changing a gearbox, in 13 minutes or whatever.
It's all just like, it's such a beautiful story. Like, so for me, it is all about like truly capturing that, like, and kind of, having that like excitement and energy to spend whatever length of time the service is and just get as much of that information as I can and kind of get it out to the people that are watching us. And definitely then kind of being like, wow, okay, brilliant. What's the next story? You get ready for these next few questions. They'll be back from the stages soon, like, so we get the information.
And like Michael, we sort of preview Galway here a wee bit. Like the championship this year has, like every year's last few years, it's taken a wee step forward. Like this year, new sponsor on board, league sponsor, like all the different categories has sponsors. Like Galway, there's, I think, must be close on 30 R5 Rally 2 cars. It's looking so positive to start off the year.
It's a good start, I have to admit, Kevin. It's great. It's great that TROA are really have gelled, and they've got. There hasn't been this unity within the championship for many years. I just think that, and they've put together little multi packages, which was probably better for the championship. And the championship is made up of different bits and pieces, but I mean, there is no shortage of quality in the entry. I mean, and I think you can't put everybody in the top 10, but there's people outside of the top 10 have quite the potential maybe to win Galway. I mean, I can think of a couple of people, Barrable and people like that. And there's 4 Citroens in the top 20. Look, the whole thing is, what a great start to the year. It certainly fills me with enthusiasm. I think it must also, all the organisers of the rallies must be thinking, this is really, really good, because they're, to a certain extent, they're the unsung heroes as much as anybody else. People who actually run these rallies, it's a thankless task. They don't get any credit for it, and they work pretty much 52 weeks of the year to bring the event next year and so on. And there's not enough of them, and they're all faced with lots of technical challenges. I mean, this year the controversy, is it controversial? The fuel supply thing for the international competitors, where it's going to be a control fuel. Therefore, we have a refueling zone on every rally now, which is something that the organisers have not had to deal with. So now they're having to find more resources. It adds into their paperwork. It's going to be even down to things like the road book has to include the refuel zone. So stuff that they would have had maybe cut and paste, copy and paste from last year. Not going to be able to do that this year. We're going to have to go down the road a kilometre and in somewhere that's secure, and it's the same for everybody. No, they don't have to use the control fuel, but every crew now has to go to the refuel area and
regardless, yes.
You use your own fuel if you're in a historic car or whatever. So it's little things like this that have constantly changed in the championship, and the organisers all have to deal with this. But I think it's reflected in the entry for Galway is, and of course, we'll always, every West Cork will have a couple of local people who are not doing Galway. The circuit it'll bring, you know, a couple of drivers out who don't normally do something. So we'll always have that little bit of extra spice added in for each regional event that we go to, you know. So it's the championship is, it hasn't been this good for probably certainly over 10, 12
Yeah.
years,
Absolutely.
probably, yeah. End of the 2000s really was just when it was probably at its healthiest. And you went back a further 15 years before that, and it was at its peak again, you know, that period from where Nesbitt sort of 2000, 2002 up to 09. And really, we haven't had the numbers. It's still been really, really good rallying and really, really good drivers. But instead of 7 or 8 people fighting for the lead of a rally, which I think we're going to have, and we had last year, and we're going to have this year, then we've only had 2 or 3 people, and it was sort of a sure bet a couple of times that somebody was going to win the rally. Well, I mean, yeah, we've got favourites for Galway. I mean, people like Josh are just on crest of a wave at the minute, you know, but yeah, there's other drivers there now are really, really knocking on the door, Marion and people like that. And Galway is the toughest rally of the year, so there's always a surprise in Galway. Always, somebody will upset the apple cart.
And like Tony, from your point of view, like you have to try and capture the drama, the story, and you know, you talked earlier about, you know, getting the story behind the story. Like sometimes it's you know, listening to what the driver's saying, but also picking up on what he's not saying or she's not saying. You know, that's a vital part of your story, your job as well, is to, you know, to get that wee unusual tidbit that might develop into something else.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and I think, you know, one of the things I mentioned a minute ago was like not kind of being, for me anyway, not being afraid to ask what I could possibly think is maybe a silly question or like an obvious question, like, was that while scary, for example, you know. But that then, like, that is the direct question that when you have you know, when you have drama, we'll say in a rally, like whether it's at the end of the stage or in the service park, it's all you can think about, naturally enough. So you're going to want to talk about it. You're absolutely going to want to talk about it. And in order to kind of, what I have noticed over the years just in life is that a lot of the time, you know, you won't say it to, you won't talk to people that don't seem interested or that don't actually ask the direct questions. And for me, I really feel like, I suppose maybe it's how I would like to be spoken to as well. Like if you ask me something, I'll answer you, you know, I'll always be as honest as I can. So that's kind of the way I approach it. And as you say, there's always drama, there's always stories, but it's just, you know, it's being real. It's forgetting that there's a camera there and forgetting that, you know, there's anybody watching. And if you were standing chatting to your friend and they had just had the hairiest moment of their life, like what would you be saying to them? Or if they were just having the most amazing moment of their life, what would you be saying to them? And for me, I think that is honestly how I approach it. You know, it's just like, jeepers, that's amazing. Like, how does this feel now? And somebody could say, oh yeah, it feels amazing. But the next question will be, are you scared to lose it now? Because, you know, you've one stage to go and you're nearly about to win here, but like, are you scared to lose it? And I suppose like, that's maybe like an intrusive question or an annoying question, but like, that's where my head would be if I were in that person's shoes. So I think, yeah, you know, for me, that's absolutely like it's the human side of it, isn't it? Like, you know, this is rallying, yes, but it's like any sport, like there's people behind it and it means everything to them, you know.
Yeah.
So I think paying sort of homage to that is like the best thing we can do in this job.
Car 1, they have a story. Car 101, they have a story. Like they have, you know, sweated blood, you know, to get there to that start line.
Absolutely.
You know, they need the opportunity to, you know, and that's the great thing about the service you guys are providing, that, you know, Car 101 will get the same coverage on screen. You know, from that point of view, I think this has to be so positive and so welcome.
Absolutely. And I mean, for me, it's like, you know, the top teams obviously are so interesting and we're all so invested and concerned with what's happening there. But oftentimes, like when you go to the, kind of the middle or the end of the field, or you will have the most interesting stories there about how people finally got the car put back together just in the nick of time, or, like the whole family's invested in it, or the whole village is invested in it, or something like that. Or, this is, car number 152, but like they have put everything in to get into this event. Like this is their first international. And it's just like, that's incredible stuff. Like, when it means the world to people. And so, yeah, we've got to look at the top competitors and we have to know what's going on there. But also, like, this means just as much to the people in the middle and in the end of the field as well. Like, and it's just that, I have to say, that's what I adore about the live streaming, is that we have the time to spend with everybody, or as many people as possible.
Yeah, because like Michael, this goes back to your dad with the flat cap and the pencil and notepad. Like he would have had that story, that the guy in car 72 had a tip when he was testing on Tuesday night, and that that there was 4 guys worked day and night to have him at the start line, and like you're going to be able to impart that and tell that story during the live stream now as well.
Well, I mean, Tony's absolutely right. That is the beauty. We do have a bit more time. I think in Galway it might be slightly different because it's a more compact route, and one of our pledges is to the best of our abilities, we'll try and bring every single stage live. So what that tends to happen is first stage, with a compact route, they're getting to the second stage quicker than maybe slightly more spread out, and Galway is quite compact. So there will be a point at probably like the first leg on stage 3, we will go to the service and get 15 minutes with Toni, say, then we'll go back to maybe the end of stage 2 or the middle of stage 2, wherever we are, and get the later runners there. And then to a certain extent, the editor has the choice then to pick and choose. Once we've got these multiple feeds coming in, we can actually pick and choose where we want to go. And we can, it's not the fat controller. That's they're sitting in the production thing, and it's like, right, Toni, and it is literally a proper professional production. Toni, we're going to come to you in 2 minutes. Are you ready to go? We're getting this as well on talk back in the studio, and then it'll be we're going to go 5 minutes with Toni. Toni, can you give us 5 minutes? Then it'll be we're going to go back to location 2 in stage 2. And somebody asked me in the notes earlier on, is there a plan B? And yes, there's a plan B. If that doesn't work out, we go to somewhere else and so on. And because we have this commitment to covering every stage, it means that we can, once the thing's up and running, we can jump to and fro between things. And the producers will basically talk to me or Zav or Toni and say, we're coming to you, we need 5 minutes from you, or we're coming to you 30 minutes in the studio with a live stream from stage 4. And then we'll go back to the service park and we'll talk to some of the later runners. And Chris is a rally man through and through. His dad was a rally man through and through. He came up through the RPM ranks, but equally they're proper rally people, so they know about telling the story. They know about what goes into car number 81 as much as car number 18. The work and the effort, it's all relative, and everybody. It's such a big deal. It's maybe a bigger deal for some of the people down the field. It could be their first rally. It could be their 200th rally. We'll get that. We try as much to get that information, and then we try to get that relayed out there by whatever means we can. But yeah, it's great that we're able to do that. I mean, there was a couple of events last year that I thought, you know what, everybody got a shout there. It was brilliant. It was people, all the historics got coverage, and it's been a long time since that's really been about. A lot of things. I know in Rally News we had to move on. Old rallies moved very quickly, and you weren't able to hang about at the end of a stage. You had to be at the next stage because we were focusing on the top 10. But my dad always made sure that the last paragraph of every Rally News, we tried to get a human interest story of somebody down the field, or try and tell the story of somebody's whole rally. And we'd go and see them at every service area and say, how's it going now? Blah, blah, blah. And with the live stream, I think things unfold during the event, and then you've got something to hang your coat on. Basically, it could be a mini running at car 99 or whatever. You blew an engine up the 2 days before the rally, and right, let's see, but we'll see how they get on during the weekend. But a lot of it unfolds as the event goes on. So yeah, but it's a great opportunity for everybody. But I'll always stress to anybody watching the podcast here, come and talk to Toni. Send us your wee stories. Send us a direct message on Facebook or whatever. We'll give you the best shot we can. We'll always be there, because people, it is all about the people. And Toni's absolutely right when she says that. It always has been. It's always been about the people.
Always.
Yeah.
And that's you mentioned earlier, Kevin, like the generations, like I would say it's 2 or 3 generations with the rally bulletins for sure, because they were all dad's information, and they were mine for a long time too. Like, so, I always remember the paragraphs. I remember I was lucky enough to be featured, because I certainly wasn't in top 10s, but I was lucky enough to be featured in the odd paragraph, and because there was, they were so famous, and to get mentioned in one was just unbelievable. And so, it is just so important that everybody, I think everybody gets the shout, but also that everybody watching or reading or listening, that, they understand the amount that goes into just being at a rally. If you're standing on the side of the road watching these cars, whether it's the rally management point of view, or whether it is the media side of it, or the competitor side of it, or even some of the diehard spectators and fans that follow every event, there's so much that is put into it, and it's just it's very important that it's shown and it's talked about. And personally, I just adore the live coverage for that, and the fact that we've leeway. We all say there's never enough time, and it's always kind of I do find in the service area you kind of definitely would have a little bit less time, because obviously the people aren't there for the whole time. And you kind of, sometimes you can't get to everybody, or sometimes you could have 3 of the most interesting stories going, but then we have to cut to something else, but as Michael was saying, for sure, if you see me wandering about the service park, and particularly in between the live parts, absolutely come up and tell me what's going on for your event, and if we can, or if if the times align or whatever, and we can get talking to people about their stories, we absolutely will, because it's literally what feeds the sport. It's why we're all there.
Michael, one of the features when you covered the Ulster Rally was having that expert analysis, from Andrew Nesbitt and Eugene Donnelly. Are there plans to do something similar throughout the year?
Yes, I think there are, Connor. That was very much one of Chris's little. We would post production. We'd have little ideas and buzz them about and everything. There was an event last year. Pamela Ballantyne came into the studio for one of the events, which was fantastic. She was the RPM old school presenter. I thought she needed to go, but I think she would have stayed on. I think on the Circuit of Ireland last year, we had Kyle White in the studio, who was due to do the circuit, had done his recce, and the car broke down the day before the recce. There was a story. Kyle turned out to spend the whole afternoon in the studio with us, which was absolutely fascinating. So with Galway, we don't have any plans for anyone specifically, but for all the events, we're going to try and get something together. We started out, it was Andrew, it started out as Eugene, and Andrew found out that Eugene was going to be doing the live stream. And well, of course, the whole thing just took Andrew, in his inimitable way, just took over, and it turned out it was the best crack ever. But, you know, I don't know whether I should say this or not. Toni will probably say no, but the whole thing at the end of the last stage, that was all Andrew's doing. It was near his house. He went and he got a couple of bottles of champagne from his own house, and he did his own thing. And it's like, as only Andrew can do. You know, I met Andrew a couple of years ago, and we were out having a bite to eat, and he sort of said something. He said, you know, we did it right, didn't we? And I thought, yeah, you did do it right, Andrew. You did it right. You were just so impressive in your day. And, you know, when you think back to what Bertie Fisher and the professionalism that Bertie brought, and then Andrew just moved it up another level, and he still has that commitment and enthusiasm that drove him 20 years ago to become probably, I think the year was Donegal, he was fastest in every single stage.
Yes, 2000 he was fastest in every stage.
That's like unbelievable. That's an amazing thing for anybody to achieve. Well, he's still got that drive and determination. So I don't think he would need to be asked twice to do 15 minutes in the service area. And I know, I mean, he gave Toni a bit of a rest for half an hour nearly. Toni?
I feel like I never worked harder trying to keep those two boys at bay, to be honest.
Yeah.
But like Andrew is a total character. There's no doubt about it.
We were extremely lucky that they jumped on board with such enthusiasm. It was fantastic. So, you know, there's not an endless stream of people, but we're always looking at maybe somebody extra coming into the studio as a specialist analysis, or if we can get 15 minutes with somebody on the rally that's special. And each rally has their own heroes. You know, in West Cork, it could be somebody different. Circuit of Ireland obviously has got a slightly different agenda on the circuit this year. It's obviously, the word's out that it's going to be based in County Tyrone this year. So, and be fundamentally run by Cookstown Motor Club, and that will be, I've seen the stages, so they're very good, and that'll be another very tough one-day rally, I believe. But yeah, we will constantly try and bring some interesting stuff in. If it's not actually on the event, pre-recorded stuff. Chris has lots of ideas up his sleeve where he's going to sit down and talk to people and in advance of the rally and their point of view for specific events and their history, you know, previous winners or whatever. We've got plenty of material to work with and plenty of great characters in Irish Rally, and we'll have no shortage of people we can bring on board.
So, you know, this is shaping up to a very exciting season ahead now. Really wishing them guys all the best. This is going to be game changer, I think, Conor, isn't it?
I think it is, definitely, Kevin. And, you know, for anybody here listening that wants to follow it, where can they pick this up?
Yeah, it's going to be streamed on YouTube via the Tarmac Championship, their YouTube channel or their Facebook as well too. So that's your port of calls there, And to complement it as well, at the end of every day, there's going to be like a 3-4 minute compilation. It's going to be pop to music. It's not going to be like not going to be a commentary as such to that. And then later in the week, then there's going to be a 10-12 minute wrap up too. But that will be fully scripted and all too. So I think this is fantastic. Great to see. Wish it all really goes well for you guys. So, and also got a chance to catch up with Matt Edwards. Hear so much now about driver tuition, and it's become really popular, which I think, for me personally, I think it's a fantastic. It has to be applauded, because a few years ago it was kind of frowned upon or like almost a taboo subject to even mention it. So we thought we'd catch up with Matt and to get his thoughts on it now as well.
I think the first thing they expect to get is honesty. I think the fact that they've been in touch shows that they've got an open mind to start with. So I think that's probably a fairly good start. But for me, it's just an honest assessment of everything that's going on in their rally, and whether it be the pace notes, the car setup, their personal prep, the drive-in, tyres, whatever. I go in with an open mind that it's whatever it takes to make an improvement somewhere. You know, a lot of the times it's one thing, a lot of the times it's several, a lot of the times it's something that you don't think it's going to be. It's something, you know, completely off the radar. So, you know, it's interesting from that point of view. But like I say, it's a complete assessment of what's going on in their rallying, really.
Excellent. Well, that kind of probably answers my second question. You tailor it to the individual needs. You don't go in with a set plan.
No, I probably go with a fairly standardized process for the first couple of runs, you know, in the car, just to establish, you know, what things feel like at a lower speed to start with, really, before going in on sort of like a qualifying lap, because if there's anything wrong, it normally goes wrong very quickly then. But yeah, I mean, it's just a case of like assessing everything that's going on, working out where they're comfortable, where they're not comfortable, where the car's working, where it's not working. And you know, the open mind thing is very important to that process, really.
Yeah, and I suppose that open mind has to be on both sides of the car as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And after the first mile on a reasonable pace run, I probably know what the rest of the day is going to pan out like. Not the rest of the day, but what we're going to be working on for the rest of the day. Because what people do on the first run is normally what their natural approach is on a first stage, if that makes sense. Okay, so yeah. All the insecurities, all the things that don't give you a lot of confidence, they will be evident on the first run on the test, like they would be on the first run of the rally. And then they're the points that we work on. Sometimes it's the driver that's the first thing to work on. Sometimes it's the car. So again, the open mind, you have to sit there and just say, right, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Right, it's driver input, or it's car response to a bump or a corner, or a turn in, or traction, or whatever. So it's that first mile is quite busy from my side in terms of senses, what I'm looking for or what I'm feeling. And then the next bit is processing that to work out where to start in improving it, again, whether it's the car first or the driver first, because they can both make each other look equally poor or equally good.
Yeah, so that makes a lot of sense. And like, can anybody benefit from this? It's not just young guys starting out. Like somebody that's been rallying for 10 years can still come to you and still develop.
Yeah, a lot of the time it's the case. It's equally the guys that have been around a long time sometimes benefit more because their initial rallying or their earlier rallying was in different cars, and if they've progressed to an R5, for example, you know, they may still be driving like they would have done in a Group N car, for example. And the driving, okay, not a lot of the things that go on are very similar, but they may have developed from a technique that was, you know, from an older type of car, or a lot of the time, you know, some drivers did a lot of rallying without pace notes, and that requires a certain style that, you know, isn't so relevant in the modern cars in modern rallies. So yeah, it's the young guys, obviously I like to start off early with them, because you can put the basics in really early and build from there, rather than get somebody that's done maybe a year and a half of rallying and has got a lot of set ways with a young mind that just wants to go flat out everywhere. It's quite hard to sort of tackle both at the same time. Whereas if you can tackle somebody with a lot of enthusiasm and put them in the right path early, that's good. But trying to tackle somebody with a load of enthusiasm and bad habits in one day it's quite hard work sometimes.
Yeah. And do you get great satisfaction at the end of the day? You know, the things that you've shown and, you know, described to them, they start putting that into practice.
Yeah,
they can see the benefit.
Yeah, them seeing the benefit is obviously the major reward. But for me, what I'm looking for or trying to achieve is a feeling or a sensation in the car that I'm looking to feel. So when I know that I felt what I'm looking to feel, I know they've got it. And then it's a case of making sure that they repeat that feeling, rather than like not know they've had a good response, if that makes sense. So yes, at the same time highlighting the poor responses or the poor inputs or poor outcomes from an input, and making them aware of that, you know, as soon as it happens, rather than doing 3 miles and say, oh, that corner back there that was tightened and you went a bit wide. Well, there might have been 3 of them.
They can't pinpoint the corner or whatever.
Yeah, try it. I mean, if anybody's looked at any of the in-car that we put up of, myself and Jason Mitchell last year, for example, I tend to sort of point out, even in a stage, I even point out the good feelings and the bad feelings as and when they happen, rather than wait till the end. Otherwise, you end up, getting a bit lost as to which one we're talking about. So, that's why it's quite hard work doing the notes and the driver coaching at the same time in a stage. So.
Yes, I can imagine. And with rallying, like the whole coaching thing has become more sort of talked about now. Like a few years ago, it was almost taboo. Isn't it great to see it finally coming through?
It's great for me.
It's great for you.
I really appreciate the amount of people that do come to me. It's really good, and I say I get a lot of satisfaction out of it. As you say, it hasn't been frowned upon before, but a lot of people haven't been receptive to the idea of tuition, and I think a lot of the time it's ego. To be honest, they maybe think that I couldn't and somebody else couldn't offer them some advice or support. But the way I look at it is Tiger Woods as a golf coach, and the golf coach isn't a better driver, a better golfer than Tiger Woods.
No. I assume with Ronaldo or whoever, every other sport.
So, and I think it's in some ways it's a hindrance for me that I've achieved as a driver to be doing the tuition, because people may think I'm coming in because I think I'm a better driver. I think in a way it's a coincidence. Okay, it's helped me develop the skills I use to do the teaching, but I go in purely with an open mind to see what I can do to help, not necessarily that I could do better. For example, I'd love to go and sit with one of the world championship guys and just see, if anybody was receptive to it, to see what I may be able to help them with. Not saying there is anything, but I would love the opportunity to sit with them,
look and see
and see what I could offer. Because, and again, it's not saying that I'd be any better, but I've spent a lot of time watching in-car, watching people do it right, watching people do it wrong, and have poor outcomes. And I wonder why they, and I unpick all the accidents and see what went wrong, or why they were losing time, or a good stage or a bad stage. And I like picking it all apart from that point of view, which isn't really a lot of the time calling on the driving side of it. It's a purely analytical kind of skill set that I've sort of developed over a long time now, nearly 12, 13 years. So that's what I'm relying on, not necessarily what I do as a driver.
Yeah, it's a different skill set. It complements it. One complements the other, but it's not necessarily. You're not approaching it from a driver's point of view. You're coming at it. What can I help with here?
Yeah, analytical. And I say with tires, with setup, with notes. You're looking at the whole picture, not just what you're doing behind the wheel into that particular corner. So and the knowledge, the experience I've had with all different areas like that, they're all called upon in the same session, if that makes sense.
Absolutely,
So it could be something from outside the car that's having an impact in the car. It's all those sorts of things that I think I find probably almost more interesting, the outside factor than psychology a bit. And it's an interesting game with lots to it that.
I suppose even your mindsets, as you get behind the wheel, dictate the input you put into the wheel. If you're thinking about work, or you're thinking about, did I feed the dog before I left the house this morning? All them things, can distract you.
Absolutely. Well, it's 100% true.
Yeah.
And if you're getting into a car with anything other than the job in hand on your mind, then there is a cost somewhere along the line, whether it be a tenth of a second a mile, or a small overshoot in the first corner, whatever. There's always a consequence for something other going on in your head that needs to be.
Absolutely. And then, to take it to the next thing then, this, coming up to Galway, unfortunately, you're not going to be there. We'll catch up on that now in a few minutes, but you're back as the role as Pirelli advisor. Is that something you enjoy as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, a really good relationship with Pirelli's developed, over a number of years now, and to be given that sort of responsibility is quite daunting at times as well, especially when it's a bit 50-50 and the weather's a bit not quite 100% guaranteed. But it's really enjoyable. It helps me as well. It's a way of keeping in touch with people, and on the sidelines, and obviously I recce all the stages as well so that's improving my knowledge base and my experience, and just you're learning all the time, talking to drivers with their feedback and getting the information, and again seeing the results, and seeing the product of that work helping people as well is really rewarding.
Yeah, and like you said, you rake the stages. Are you raking it like as a driver, or are you raking it as a tire technician? Are you looking to see the surface changes, where dangerous cuts could be or whatever? Is that what you're looking at?
It's both, yeah. As a driver, the whole idea was that as a driver, I'd be looking at it to see maybe what I would be taking into consideration from that point of view. So, like you say, cuts, don't cuts, change the surface, and changes in the weather that can influence the tyre choice, and then having an understanding of the range of products and where they work, when they're not going to work, and even from taking into account a loop of stages rather than just one as well. Because you have to have a tyre that works on
3 stages rather than just half of one stage.
3 stages rather than just and if there's a 2 mile section in one that is really specifically one tyre, but then you've got 40 mile in the loop, you can't then pick that tyre just for 2 mile. And my job then is to highlight that so that the choice can be made accordingly, rather than just go for a wet because there's a really wet half a mile in one stage. And
you build time taking it cautious through that half mile or so loop. It's
all that gets taken into account, and being able to provide that information to all the Pirelli customers is important and is relevant. So.
And do Pirelli, you obviously give this feedback back to Pirelli as well. Do they react to that? Can they tweak their compounds or whatever to, I don't know, is there like an Irish tire or whatever kind of thing?
No. The range is fairly standard. I would say the information definitely goes back, but I wouldn't say there's specific alterations for specific countries. I may be wrong, but I would say that because of the cost of producing a new tire and developing it and homologating it, it's not something that happens that quickly. Although there's always something going on. There's always an A or B or a C or something coming on. That how's this one a bit different? And there's always a reason. It's always originated from somewhere, and it's interesting. It evolves a lot quicker than you think.
Yeah, and even on the event as well too. Would you find that drivers would be coming to you and saying, I felt that tire wasn't working right? Is there something I can change and with my setup, or is it will it just be tires you'd be working on through the weekend really?
That's something that I think is overlooked a lot, is changing the tire but not changing the car to suit, or vice versa, and I'm trying not to give too many of the secrets away. you end up. I've always managed to sort of link the tire choice with a setup, and be confident to change one or the other, or both for different loops, different stages, different weather. But yes, a lot of the time it's advice on how to make a tire work better in a stage around the setup, because it all works together as one package. And sometimes you do have to change the setup of the car just to make that tire choice work a little bit better. And that's the sort of advice that's useful to people, because I got a little bit of experience in doing it and giving them the confidence to go a direction that they may have thought of. And,
I remember back in 2019, Craig Breen come off Moll's Gap, and then I can't remember what the second stage was, and he started making a few different, a click here and a click there, and all the other drivers were all standing about amazed that he was changing his setup between stages. But I suppose coming from the WRC, that was quite normal, and I think it's become more normal here now as well.
Yeah, I think you're almost missing a trick to be sitting on the same setup all weekend. For example, I remember in West Cork in 19, I had a slightly different damper click setup just for Ardfield because it was so wide and so fast that year. There was only one sort of single width road really in it, and I was worried with the Fiesta being a little, getting a bit long in the tooth there, that I was going to get done on power, and with them in a real fast stage, I was going to lose out. But so I tried to maximize what I could with just, I think it was 2 or 3 clips on something, just to give it a bit more stability, so I could try and carry a bit more speed to overcome the deficit that I felt I had a little bit with the car. And it turned out we were quickest on the first run, and then the second run was that famous in-car where we nearly ended up in the pink house towards the end. I think we were fastest then, and joint fastest. There wasn't much in it anyway, but I think we were fastest and it worked. But the point was, I sort of had the confidence to change the setup between the stages for a stage, because there are a lot of the stages in Ireland or around the world that a loop of stages can have 3 different characters in them.
And as it probably, the whole psychology of rallying, the other boys will be watching you doing that, going, why is he doing that? And that's, you're talking about getting into the stage with a clear head. They're starting to think, well, why is he doing that? And that's a distraction that they don't need.
Yeah, so I mean, I'd quite like making a slightly different tyre choice to everybody else that I was confident with, because even if I wasn't totally sure myself that it was correct, it would probably play enough havoc with other people to have the desired effect, really. So it is to be confident enough to make a change and do something a bit different has a number of effects as well. As long as you're confident that you're doing something that could work, it's worthwhile trying. And at the end of the day, with the tyres these days, one step in the compound or a couple of clicks in the damper isn't going to make a car from being on the pace to totally undrivable, in my opinion. And some people are more susceptible to changes in the car or the tyre than others, but it doesn't usually mean that you're on totally the wrong setup from one stage to the next, or one setup to the next.
Right, but it's psychologically you feel better going into that stage. You have the right position. Yep. So, and that then feeds into, you're pulling on the Pirelli hat this weekend. I would say you prefer to be pulling on the rally suit.
Yeah, that goes without saying. Unfortunately, I mean, we did try. We tried hard again to put something together. I don't think it's any secret I'd love to be doing the Irish Championship again. I'd love to go and do any of the rallies in Ireland. That goes without saying, but it's just difficult at the moment to put the time aside when work is so busy to try and find a budget, really. And to go and try and find a budget to do that is pretty much a full-time job and in itself, and another full-time job alongside, and young family and lots of other things going on. It is hard to put it all together, but that's not to say I'm any less keen than I have been to do it, but it's just having the resources to pull it all together and make it happen, really.
Yeah, and we said before we started recording, you're the man yourself and Ocean Price for the polo exodus here to Ireland. I think now looking at the entry list for Galway, everyone's gone Citroen after your performance in Donegal last year. People have looked at the Citroen in a new light. That must give you a great sense of pride in some ways.
In some ways, yeah, but it's also a fair frustration that I'm not there to try and and have another go, really. But I think coming back to the tuition thing, I really linking it all together. That was a new car to me, a new co-driver, never been to Donegal. I'd never actually had the Pirelli RA5 on a car ever in before that weekend, so I didn't really have a lot of known quantities to go with. So I just went back to the basic process that I teach and I think about, and just trusted and believed in that, really, and tried to make the process feel good in the car rather than chase a time. And I think all I had to rely on was that sense of the process working and make sure I could, I tried to get into that rhythm as soon as I could, and it paid dividends again. And that's the first stage of Donegal's one I watched quite a lot, because it is purely just trying to make the process work.
And a belief and trust in your system, and you made it work on that stage.
Yeah, and for a first stage, okay, we weren't quickest, but I think we were second quickest. But with no real known quantities around me, apart from the repetition of what I believe works.
And like Donegal must have given like, I know it didn't end well for you, but it must have given you great confidence that you could put into place all your systems and be successful. Like, when you think yourself and Callum were quite a way ahead of, I can't remember who was there starting Sunday morning, but like, that was probably the biggest lead that anybody had for the whole year. It just showed the pace that yourself and Callum were at for the weekend.
Yeah, it was nice. I mean, I know we weren't, there wasn't a stage that we were thinking, oh, we'll take this one easy and have a run through this one and, take another one on it. It was, there wasn't really anything to be given away all weekend. So, to know that the process works, that my systems work and my preparation works, that you can go anywhere, potentially anywhere in the world and be competitive against people with knowledge and experience of that area was really nice. And it was a big confidence boost after this, a decent chunk of time out of a car. And it's it's a similar position to that I find myself in now, and it's still nice to know that if I got the opportunity to go and do something that with maybe a little bit of a test and a bit of a feel, you could be somewhere near. But it's just pulling all the strings together to make all that happen. It's a lot of work, as everybody knows, and it's just trying to make it all happen again from a standing start now. When like the support's not there at the minute and it's hard to find, but trying to start from scratch to find that level of budgets, it is really difficult.
Yeah, and like, if there's anybody out there, like, that thinks they can try and help pull some of them strings, get in contact you through social media is probably the best, is it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've always tried to do it in a way that benefits people that do help in, business to business relationships and things like that. It's not quite the sticker on the car sort of way to go about things these days. There's all sorts of ways that you can, reward people that help you out in, and again, that's a specific individual approach I've always made. It's not just a blanket sort of proposal to do it, and just try and take each case as it comes and see what you can do to help everybody out so that everybody gains from it, really.
Excellent. Well, Mark, I wish you all the best for the coming season, and God willing, we'll see you on the right side of the ditch before too long.
Yeah, well, hopefully not in one again anyway.
Okay, good man. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Kevin. Cheers. Bye.
Thanks very much, Matt. I really do hope we see you on, not in the ditch, obviously, but yeah, on the proper side of the ditch and back behind the wheel again before too long. So, Connor, thank you very much. That's season 2, episode 2 wrapped up. So please like, share, comment, rate, all those things. You keep doing it in your droves, so all appreciate it. And until the next time, take care, speak soon, and bye.